Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're checking out a RuneCraft Earth Rune deck that does have the new Levi Accomplished Mage in it. Unfortunately, I don't think we get to use it for this video, but it is included in the deck and does an okay job. The problem with mini expansions and making new content is it's hard to get video gameplay at the initial start of them, where we are getting to use the new cards guaranteed. So don't expect every video to include it, but I want to show off this deck in particular since it's not one that I've used a lot. I have used a variation on this, but this one has a lot of cards that I haven't really used before, so I thought, why not get it out there and give it a go? So let's get right into it. So kicking off our first game with this deck, we are going up against another RuneCraft player with the Oz leader, which is one I would have actually loved to have had. We have the Dario, which is awesome, but Oz is definitely one of the nice ones too. So this deck mainly focuses on, of course, generating Earthright, and that's really the only aim for it. You generate as much mana as you can and get that damage in and take full advantage of it as much as possible. It's very quick to go for stuff like Cauldron out really early, which definitely makes a difference, and a lot of opponents will concede if they realize that you've just completely outplayed their early game. So don't find it too uncommon. That's actually what this video will kind of be like. I know some of you guys don't like the early conceding games, but that just tends to be how some decks go, as opponents just don't like dealing with them long term. So it's very hard to get any decent long term gameplay. But as you can see here, we went for a very good early game so far, getting as many Earthright cards, and Earth Sigils on the board as possible to take advantage of. When I felt like I was running out of options, I did decide to, of course, go all in. So we're definitely off to a good start. And our turn 5 is looking great with Golem. We should be able to hopefully take the game in whatever direction we want from here and generate a good amount of Earth Sigils. It's definitely what we want. Earth Sigils are important for this deck, as I said at the beginning. We've even got Slumbering Calamity that could become playable and usable. It's basically an 8-drop 4 damage clear at that point. You can also use it as its base 3, which would give it a 4-3, I think, or 4-2, sorry. And with Evo, even better stats, so it's an okay card. Slumbering Calamity is not something I mess around with too much, but it's definitely got its place. And Emerus isn't bad either for some removal. It's just, it seems the current meta doesn't suit those cards perfectly. And I could have went for Golem here, and I probably should have, honestly. I should have went for Golem and then just played some other cards out instead, but I went for the Emerus play, which was still okay. We got some damage to face, which is always important, especially since we haven't dealt really any at this point. Jetbroom Witch, looking great for them. But they are going to have to trade this if they actually want to get rid of my Emerus, so that's good for us. Now we've pretty much got another turn to play a Golem, which that will then force us to, of course, go for the big Golem play. Which is usually what will end in a concede. Is typically when I flood the board with Earth Sigils and go for a Golem play. Usually you can get fairly decent damage. It's very rare that I get mostly Golems, but it does happen occasionally since there is that RNG there. So Mysterium Project, which is actually okay. You can use it to duplicate pretty much anything you want. And I wanted to set ourselves up nicely, as much as I could, for the Slumbering Calamity play that we want to go for. But at the same time, I also wanted to get lethal, so I had to make a snap decision. And my decision was to go for those Verdurk Rituals, which I think was the right choice. Of course, it's risky because they have a fairly decent board, but I believe it does end up with the concede here because they actually think I have a lethal in hand, which at this stage, as you can see, I don't. But my opponent doesn't really know that, so I had to kind of play off that a little bit. But we definitely would have been close, and we probably could have made do with what we had. For the next game, we are going to be playing against Dragoncraft. It is doing that thing where the black screens for a minute, which is kind of annoying when you're trying to record sometimes. You think, oh yeah, the loading's done, but then it's just like, oh no, wait, not quite. So Dragon, a little more interesting. We're seeing a lot of variation right now as people try out new decks, so don't expect anything to be too crazy good right from the get-go. Expect at least a week adjustment period for the mini expansion as people get used to new cards and new decks and new archetypes. Or not new archetypes so much, but new styles of play. but I expect it to settle down very rapidly since it was a very small edition. So I didn't go for a turn 1 Scrap Iron because I actually want to go for a turn 2 Rabbit Mage to generate our first Earth Sigil, since you can't generate an Earth Sigil with it when you've got one on board, so I felt like waiting was definitely the best choice. Now I can generate as much as I want here. Really good early game, which is why we do end up with quite a early concede, I think, in this one. Because how do you really deal with this? You're already taking quite a large chunk of damage right off the go. So it's very difficult to make a full-on comeback from that, especially since I've now got Golem in my hand, which is pretty nuts. And with that, I can pretty much just go Earth Sigil into Golem play, which is really good. Or I can actually go for the 5-drop Golem, but that seems a lot weaker, so definitely making this play was ideal. So we got 3 hits to face, we've got the Verdict Rituals, I go for the Rabbit Mage. Since we've got 3 Verdicts for next turn for 9 damage to win the game, that's all we really needed. So the deck overall is really consistent. You can run into some trouble if you brick early game, which is possible, but not hard to get out of with a lot of the cards here. Fortunately, if you're careful about it. I would have loved to have got young Levi played, or sorry, accomplished mage Levi played, but it's awkward to try and get him out. That's the only real trouble I have sometimes. Because of his effect and the way it's styled, he's a good card overall, but everything else in this deck runs so quick that he's really only used in a negative situation, not in a positive one where you're usually ahead. So definitely a tricky one, but I want to revisit and hopefully get that card played out, since I think it would be a lot of fun. If you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to like button and subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, guys, see ya.